What's happening? Benton here. More Doomer dispatches from I-40 westbound. Now coming to you live and for the replay from Arizona. Man, between these time changes and Arizona not having daylight savings time, apparently it's like 8:35. I tried to make the stream for 8:45 and StreamYard was like, well, that bullshit don't compute. Had to set it for 9. Anyway, enough about that. Shout out to Doomer kids everywhere. Doomer kids all up in my feed, y'all. Talking about life is meaningless. So I listened to a kid on a Doomer video, and he was all on this life is meaningless. But then he's wants to work a job. He's got a college degree and makes 45,000, which, as we know, that's like when I was making 30,000 back in the day. 33,000. There's your 33 code. And he was talking about wanting to have fun. Well, ain't that a purpose? He's talking about life is meaningless. Well, that sounds like a meaning to me. Isn't fun a meaning? I don't know. Do I need to look up the meaning of the word meaning? Right? That's right, brother. Hey, good. Yeah, shout out to Doomer kids everywhere, man. Good to see you, BC. Yeah, and I'm not criticizing them. I'm just to be clear, this ain't by way of criticism. But you know, I gotta add my own little stink onto things, right? And bless them, bless them. I ain't trying to guide them, but I feel like I could add a little bit to whatever they're talking about. Meanwhile, they're way ahead of me. I was normie as fuck back in the day, serving the hell out of them corporations, Jack, with a smile on my face. Well, back then we was still, well, not we, but anyway, it doesn't even matter what I was doing back then. I want to stick to the matter at hand. I'm not going to read the chat. I allow myself to get too sidetracked with the chat. I want to talk about the Doomer kids. More and more videos hitting my feed now. That doesn't mean there's more Doomer kid videos. Really, that means I'm actually watching more than 90 seconds. Some of them I'm even watching in their entirities, right? And this last one got me to thinking so much. Hell, I had to leave the video and go do my own live stream. Yeah, red pilled at birth. And then, well, let's get into it, VC. How much of that actually is built into the realm itself? In control, we like to call it MK Ultra. My opinion, and some of what I've been on about recently, I feel like I can support with logic and argument, right? Assertion. But my opinion is this is baked into the cake. So does the red pilled, and I don't think you mean in as far as the broads. I think you just mean, I don't know what you mean, actually. Maybe you'll tell me, but I'm taking that to mean doomer pilled, I guess. I don't fucking know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Maybe that's better if I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a bit loopy from all the driving. That's my excuse. We'll get into it. It's a slow burn, as y'all know. But I'm wondering if it's just baked into the cake, this idea that they're pretty much told from day one, well, you ain't Chad, right? And some of them are, but, most of them ain't Chad. So therefore, and I think some of them hold out hope. And also, is this how society at least gets them to try to, at least attempt to, if you have an idea of failure to launch, is this what gets them to at least try long enough to become doomers? And they're not all doomers. I see plenty of copers. I see plenty of copers in my feed, right? Trying to bright side the fuck out of everything. Gen X and boomers are the worst at that, but I mean the younger generations. Some of these people are going to be positive bright siders no matter what happens, but I don't have the luxury of, I'm not able to maintain my sanity, and I have to face things more or less as they are, or at least as close as I can get to that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just want to make sure we're on the same page, BC. Yeah, red pill doesn't, and I'm not criticizing the live chat, but it doesn't even mean anything anymore. Red pill. I think it just means not buying into the bullshit. I think's what it means. It's just any version of not swallowing hook, line, and sinker. The conventional wisdom, the word of mouthing. The conventional path of you know basically what VC followed. I mean, you know not by way of offense, brother, but more or less what VC went along with, and that's who suffers the most in a lot of cases. I would say is the people who do have the capacity to follow through with all this university and maybe have a high income for a time just to see it taken away, and or this fella I was listening to earlier getting just enough of an education to make 45,000 without what? Without having to go do truck driving or work in a factory or some version of a supervisor at a warehouse. Just to actually be able to have a some sort of corporate job, which I'm assuming he didn't even say that that's what he was doing. Some sort of office job. I just assumed that. Who knows? Yeah, no, exactly. And why would they? Because the Zoomers, Gen Z, there's nothing in it for them. I grew up on a famous example I like to give is Caddyshack, and the loser rich kid joke that everybody made fun of still had a girlfriend. Like most of the guys in that movie had girlfriends or women they were dating. It was just normal back then. And then I was born into a time warp. So I came along during a time when, yes, it was actually, believe it or not, it was a tough job market when I was first trying to get jobs and all of this. But, pretty soon it was relatively easy if a person wanted to work a low level job. Right. And I don't know why I feel compelled to give this history, but, I was willing to do these things as long as it worked for me. Then 0809 happened. Now I'm starting to see and put a pin in 0809. So something I realized coming out of 0809, which, the populace never came out of, but, you know, whatever that culture was like after 0809, by 2010, I realized just in my own brain, it struck me that I had a low level job. I lived in Arkansas, cheap as fuck. My woman had a, decent paying job for the area. I could always go back to waiting tables and not make a lot of money. But again, it's Arkansas. In 2010, it wasn't that hard to live. Up until that point, it wasn't that hard to live. So what started happening to me was I realized, okay, I have an apartment, I have a car, I have a job. I only need the job to pay for the apartment and the car. I only need the car to go to the job, and I only need the apartment to be presentable for the job. So I recognize, hey, this is like a triangle or a pyramid, and all of these things depend on each other. And whatever a Fight Club did to my mind back in the day, I recognized in the moment, and as I was going through some things with my own mental health and my own, defective personality struggles, and I had certain issues, but not on paper, right? I'm still above reproach on paper, but I had things that I was taking very seriously. I was beginning to realize, oh, like I'm either going to have to go get medicated by the mental health system, or I'm going to have to figure out my own fucking mental health, which, you know, uh, clap it up for Benton here. I've been able to do. And so I recognized that, well, I can just walk away from all three, but I can't really, I can have the car right up until I don't have the money to pay for it anymore, or it breaks down and I don't have the money for the repairs. But, in the longer term, I don't need any of these three things. Now, there is the fear, there is the uncertainty, there is, growing up way too comfortable in an, what's still an affluent society to some extent. There's all these creature comforts, even poor folks are DoorDash to some extent, right? Uber Eats and all of this. Um, Yeah, it's a very strange combination of impoverished, but then able to do, not really to do things, but still able to. Again, it's corporate, right? So of course, DoorDash. What DoorDash wants is for people to subscribe to the subscription service, whatever that is a month, for whatever they get for the $9.99, to increase the enterprise value of DoorDash. So the stock price can go up in all of this, and it is a corporate hellscape. So shout out to Gen Z for coming to understand the corporate hellscape. In a lot of ways, Gen X and Boomers have never completely figured this out, even as many of them still toil within the corporate hellscape. Right, my own mother included, working for a major, well, not major, but a corporation, retail corporation. A store that used to be in a mall. When malls were still a thing, shopping malls. So I'm starting to see other videos hit my feed, Gen Z, maybe some of the younger millennials, some of the ideas I was working with in 2010. And it's not about Benton bragging. It's not about Benton being ahead of the curve, although I have been in many ways. It's about, I I have no desire to lead the way. It's that I've already done a bunch of work. I've already put in a bunch of reps. I've already toiled, and, no hyperbole, I've walked around likely about to go back to that. And in part, this stream is about what I'm probably finna do, which is interesting, probably only to me, but then it's also interesting to other people by vicarious extension, because there's, especially all through the deep South with my, I had an ACU camo backpack, and, the all of my gear. I might have the pants matched, and I didn't mean to match. It was just, this was the best gear I could afford, on the road or whatever, or Amazon Locker at the time. With my limited funds, I'd been homeless for many years at the time, but hitchhiking all through the deep South and taking my sweet ass time, and walking the U.S. highways to get rides by these salt of the earth types. And there were times I'd be walking through a parking lot somewhere in town, and I'd catch eye, I'd somebody look me in my eyes, maybe a guy, my age, maybe a little younger. And you could tell there's a little bit of jealousy and envy, because, not that they want to be doing exactly what I'm doing, but some version of that's, at least there's some reality to that. Like, that's real on some level. And then, what are they doing with their day? Some version of wage slaving, serving corporations, probably got a discontented, mama at home, right? Mouths to feed, whatever that is, that whole trap of whatever that is, right? However you want to term that. And, a fetish, and something of a fetishization of the fact that I chose to maintain, my own autonomy to some extent. Even at 49, I'm still, in spite of chronic illnesses, I have the fitness level and the health to still just go fucking live outside on the West Coast for the most part. And this is only because I'm unwilling to use my charm and, debatable attractiveness to, have people to move in with people, right? And mooch off of them. Like, that's never been my style. I'm just not down with that. I'm not that version of a user, but, it works for my father, apparently. And both people are getting something out of it, certainly. Certainly. And again, this is not by way of solutions. This is by way of, I hear a lot of what these the doomer kids are saying, and their own actions and speech sort of proves the opposite of a lot of what they're contending, right? Yeah, and the Joker movie probably has a lot to do with this, I would assume. Are they Joker pilled? The not the sequel, but the recent Joker movie probably has a lot to do with this. Just people maybe feeling, and I saw it, but I don't know that I even saw the whole thing. But maybe kids are, and I say kids as a term of endearment, not as a insult. It's more of like I'm calling myself old than I am calling them children, right? It's like it's actually an acknowledgement of my advanced age. But the idea on the one hand of, well, life is, and I don't want to misquote this one fellow, but it was like, basically life is purposeless and doesn't mean anything, and which he's not wrong in certain ways, but then also expressing a desire to earn a certain amount of money so he can have fun, right? Which is something of an extended adolescence, and then it's something of a Peter Pan syndrome. I myself have never had to completely grow up, although I'd say I'm like 85% grown up. I never had to fully grow up, and I'm always 18 in my mind, perpetually like a mature 18-year-old. And it's not about me. It's that their own thought process and actions sort of disproves. It's like their mouth is writing checks their ass can't cash, and you know I can't I can't give them advice or prescriptions. Only they can choose for themselves. And this is a big key in my view, because so much of life is like hire a coach, read some books, get some advice, maybe see what works for other people. And it's like, yeah, of course, take a little bit from here, a little bit from there. But in the final analysis, it's each individual sort of creating for themselves whatever's going to fulfill them. Okay. So if some of these kids actually are fulfilled by figuring out how to earn just enough money to enjoy themselves, well, what will this realm tell them? They'll say that's wrong. Now, my thing is, yeah, go for it. I've gotten to know myself, and I've learned that I enjoy, self denial. I enjoy a lot of things that come along with being like some version of a monk. And I mean an actual monastic. And I've never had the balls to just more or less renounce possessions. And I'm on the verge of maybe just getting rid of most of this crap in this car. And I say most because, well, some of it's so useful. I don't know. I guess I know I could walk away from all of it. But the point I'm making is, in this realm, a lot, in my opinion, a lot of the service of Moloch's machine, the Industrial Revolution, corporatism, the corporate hellscape, money, and all of these things, it really is sort of based on, because the individual is accustomed to a certain level of comfort, right? So in a lot of ways, my own superpower in a way has been that I've been able to force myself, but without being drug addicted, right? Because when I had this strong desire to drop this pyramid I talked about, where I became viscerally aware, the job, the apartment, and the car, they all depend on each other. Why can't I just drop all three? And logically understanding, well, of course you can, but then it's like, okay, what now? Is it homelessness? Is it begging in the streets? And yeah, I mean, it's been both to some extent. But here's how I mind fuck myself, right? Is I've been an anthropologist my whole life on some level. I've watched a lot of documentaries. I've been interested in subcultures, and I've prison culture I've been interested in as an anthropologist, and I mean layperson anthropologist with a curiosity. But then also like this, even going back to the 80s, like a lot of 80s movies, there was a lot of depictions of junkies, but it always was kind of on the down low. But you knew, especially like the gritty movies of the 70s, like this was a thing, actual junkies. And then as that became more and more of a reality in society, more on Front Street, what I recognized is, okay, I have a desire, but it's not really attached to anything. Meaning, it's relatively easy to just continue to work at a gas station, and especially if I'm able to, stay with this broad, my, ex-wife number two, and she was making good money at the time for the area again, for the time. And see, that was the comfort of that. So what I saw is that if a junkie What's the difference between me and a junkie? Now, obviously, I looked down on a junkie at the time, but then I recognized, well, hey, buddy, the junkie is superior to you in a way because the junkie is able to wake up every morning highly motherfucking motivated, and they do whatever the fuck they got to do to get their fix, right? So logic dictates to me that if they can do it, I can do it. So logically, now I have the proof of concept, which is like, but then unless I force myself into some sort of scenario like that, then it's just too easy to seek the comfort. So that's what I see in a lot of these, and it's not their fault. The doom kids, the doomer kids. It's that they've been raised in a way where they've sort of been, on the one hand, they've been subjected to this off the charts fucking trauma and just trauma built into society itself, whatever the fuck happened to them individually as kids, the trauma of capitalism, the trauma of, you know, social media, self image, a lot of that being tied to their own attractiveness. Like, I know not that great looking, but it's like something I've talked about recently where society has become way more looks conscious. And the Zoomers, man, they don't give a fuck. They just talk about it, right? Which I respect. I respect the hell out of it. They just talk about it. How much of this is tied to looks. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Uh, that was way, now it was an advantage when I was younger, but it was way less emphasized than now. It just wasn't as much of a thing as now. It's like, and it's not enough, but in a way, it's almost the most important thing. But then it's also, oh, but he's poor. So it's like, yeah, the looks get me a little bit of attention to some extent, but then it's like, oh yeah, he's poor or he's a truck driver, which is almost worse because, oh, well, it's like the opposite of prestigious, right? It's like, yeah, he has a pocket full of money, but he's like some version of Oscar the Grouch, like literally living in a trash can. Because people ain't dumb. They know what goes on in them trucks. Most truckers are creeps anyway. Thankfully, I don't resemble that remark on any level. And it's not about me, but the point I'm trying to make is, if anybody asked me, and, if in a hypothetical vacuum where someone was able to recognize, hey, Benton seems to have accomplished, he's made something of himself based on this doomerism and, sort of having his own autonomy. And at least he's trained himself to be able to access whatever, he has to have to get through the day. And, even if that's some version of, his entertainment is walking around listening to YouTube. And it's like, yeah, somehow year over year, I managed to make enough money to maintain the fucking cell service. And, I'm probably going to re up on another year of YouTube Premium. On some level, everything else I need, I can either, get just enough food stamps, do just enough odd jobs / begging, get just enough fucking YouTube donos. Like it'll all sort of coalesce into, Benton gets what he needs, and has just enough left over. He's able to work just enough, to pay for another year of cell service and another year of YouTube Premium. And, it's the golden age of affordable electronics. So it's like, yeah, I'm using, I'm talking to you on $25 earbuds, and my main pair I listen to content on, I paid $10 for on sale, right? Like, it's just, what a bizarre time to be alive. Again, back to the surrealism and the unreality, right? Well, and I don't want to, but yeah, the free thought is, and I'm sure you're making good points. I'm just not able to divert my discourse onto that. And, I'm not even able to hold an audience right now. And I can tell sometimes that's like my best, in my opinion. And remember, like, it's in a lot of ways, it's my critique of my own art that matters the most. And this is my art to some extent, or at least parts of it. And in some ways, even though, of course, my own, vanity wants to see 20 people here or whatever, but when I go from 10 to 5 and I'm really hammering home these uncomfortable truths, and just me talking about homelessness, a lot of people flee that. And also, how much content am I seeing now where, dude, homelessness it's almost mainstream at this point. More often than not, when I just matter of factly tell somebody I've been homeless since 2012, with some interruptions, but effectively homeless since 2012, half the time they're like, oh, yeah, I was homeless for a time myself. But it's that a little bit of shame, and, nobody really wants anybody to know, right? Just a moment. I need to drink some water here. So if the Zoomer who actually believes half their own doomerism, you know, and it's probably half the Joker movie and half, you know, the their own existential dread, and I remember being of a certain age, and in the uh, that feelings of discontent around a desire to make my way in the world, and that I think especially for males, it's a very real thing, you know. Uh, so I remember a lot of that. I can relate to it. And I'll tell you this, unless a person is in some kind of bloodline where their fucking family is so demonized and so worshiping of Moloch over generations after generations after generations, unless somebody's born actually wealthy and not merely into relative affluence as I was, which was just, poor people temporarily experiencing affluence, relative affluence. And I wasn't able to tell the difference as a young person for some reason. Took it for granted, of course. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? But what I would tell the kids, man, the Doomer kids, is, hey, man, you get to decide what your day looks like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, a decade from now. I started at age 35. I began working the process of earning where I am today, meaning I get to just drive my happy ass to the West Coast with about 7 G's, a car, a fucking year of cell service, right? A backpack, my health to some extent, you know, um, my mental health, right? True knowledge of self, um, you know, a bit of a wanderlust that'll probably never die, meaning I don't think I'll ever get tired of going places. Although, 6 years consecutive on the road, I got a little sick of the meth heads, but and it got too easy, right? Like, in a way, other than the meth heads everywhere, it got too easy in a way. This is with the truck driving, and this is the leveling up. I did 7 weeks of truck driving. It was too easy in a way, right? Meaning, like, I'm not really getting anything out of it. I kind of am, but I'm really just getting money out of it. And then I'm also getting what? A comfortable life to hide away from the world. Well, where's the progress in that? So, what I would tell the Doomer kids is, each and every Doomer kid sort of gets to design their life. But, and here's where, if VC's still listening, I got a big gift back in, when I started studying all this pickup artist material, because I learned very quickly that a lot of the mistakes that men or males make with women is approval seeking. So then I had a concept. So as I'm divorcing myself from seeking her approval, well, then that actually bled over into all aspects of my life. I began to see the folly in seeking the approval of whoever's at the job, right? Although strategically, I might be willing to play that game. And I know VC knows what I'm talking about here, because he probably actually plays that game fairly well, to some extent, although not as well as others, perhaps, but that's neither here nor there. Some of that is how much of one's, metaphorical soul is one willing to just hand over. It's one thing to be sacrificed to Moloch as a baby, but then how much of that, how much are we going to continue to offer ourselves up to Moloch, right? Like, there's really no end to, Moloch will accept that perpetually, as far as I can tell. Like, it is, if the only thing that actually exists is the now, is this guy going to pass me? Or, I mean, like, what are you going to do, bro? I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you out, sir. Talking to the big rigs. Um, so I've earned this. And the fact is, I know I can just park this car somewhere, leave almost everything in it, take out my fucking rucksack, which is not a smaller rucksack because I'm not as big and strong as I used to be. I can take out my smaller backpack, right? I can choose a couple of things, and just fucking walk away from this motherfucker. I couldn't have done that and maintained my sanity 15 years ago. See, bit by bit, piece by piece, I've clawed my way to this point. So back to the approval seeking, some of this is many years ago, I disentangled and divorced myself from any notion of I took a fork in the road. I took the crossroads where I knew, okay, buddy, if you get in this car and you drive your happy ass to California, I don't know what my life's going to be, but I know unless I just flee back to normal life, whatever that is, status quo, I knew implicitly that I was about to transform myself into something that would never, ever, ever be capable of gaining the approval of what passes for respectable society. Again, you should have seen me when I rolled into this trucking company. It's completely unacceptable, right? I drove in a roach infested 2012 Nissan Versa with the back half of the windows covered by, Dollar Tree window screens. And that I'd clearly, if anybody has half a brain, I've been living in this motherfucker for damn near a year. Didn't even bother to take a shower, y'all. Didn't give a fuck about what my hair looked like because I know I'm qualified to do a job and they're not going to take one look at me and say, hit the motherfucking road, Jack. And they know, well, maybe he is going to quit after 2 months. We don't fucking know, but we know based on whatever his permanent record is in truck driving, he's not going to crash into anything. He's going to make us money. He's going to pick up and deliver all the loads on time, and he's not really going to bitch that much compared to the other drivers. And he's not going to fuck up our safety score necessarily. But if we harass him, he's just still going to. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do, man. If it's midnight and I know if I jump out to inspect the rig that 10 truckers are going to start circling like fucking vultures for my spot, I'm not getting out and inspecting the equipment. That's just what's going to happen. Fuck you. I'm not doing it. Fire me, right? And I don't want to get into a trucker thing, but my point is I've earned the right to just be me on some level and just sort of make people deal with it. Now, part of this is what I talk about, which is, and I'm getting a little preachy, but that's probably okay, which is correct philosophy is the absence of incorrect philosophy. And one of my aphorisms and just ways of living I figured out years ago, which is listen, and I am a bit of a people pleaser. I don't know if that's my own nature, if that's what was done to me, with the via the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society that my bozo parents raised me in that I never joined, but I always have to make that clear, but that last part. But I got to deal with y'all, meaning the people of this world, not you, the listener. But so I have an attitude of I got to deal with y'all, and consequently, y'all got to deal with me. I'm here too, motherfuckers. And I really feel like, again, nobody asked me. I'm not a Gen Z fucking liaison or consultant, but what I would like to see, like now, just let me fantasize in a fucking thought experiment here for a moment. I would like to see Gen Z adopt a little bit of that, which is, hey man, we're here too. We understand that, unless we identify, unless we're going to follow Gen X and Boomers and put half of our self-image into how corporations view us, and they already know that that's a fucking bullshit folly. It would be better for them, in my opinion, to lean into, look, man, we're here. We're some version of queer, and I'm making a joke there, but we're here, we're queer, and y'all got to deal with it. Fucking deal with it, bitch. Like an actual swagger, right? And coming out of the fake pandemic and depression, society's depressed. Forget about economics, right? Like I view people out here. It's either some version of wild people running amok in Amarillo or Tuscaloosa where they just got it like that. It's just wild, the wild bunch, or they're hopped up on, it's Kentucky or Arkansas, and people are hopped up on fucking meth or whatever to cure their depression. I figured that out years ago. That's why most people use meth. It temporarily cures their depression. Temporarily cures it though. Fucking flat out cures it. Oh, it's gone. Oh yeah. As long as they stay on that meth, it's gone. But just to sort of throw down the gauntlet and say, hey man, we're here. Fucking deal with it. Yeah, yeah, you're right. We don't want to work. Are you crazy? What the fuck is wrong with you that you want to work? I still want to work. So I like to work. What the fuck is wrong with me? If it don't work for me, why the fuck would I do it? And meanwhile, I'm still having to, and I'm getting a little agitated. Let me calm down here. I'm until recently, I was still dealing with versions of Mr. Miyagi where it's like on a daily basis, if I don't go out and pretend and at least pretend to work, it's like I have no value as a man. It's like, bro, that's some depression era fucking nonsense right there. That was depression era where they put on their suit of clothes and fucking stood around all day, just waiting for work, right? I'm like, fuck you. If it doesn't work for me, why would I do it? I'm happy to go drive a truck. It worked for me for exactly 7 weeks, and then it stopped working for me. So I left. Fuck them. Meanwhile, the moment they can afford to buy a self-driving truck and the insurance company will insure them, I'm out of a job. The fucking moment. They won't. You think they're going to tell me? They'll send me a fucking message over the WhatsApp. Hey, man, thanks for your service. But actually, they won't even tell me till I get back to the yard. They'll route me to the company yard, and then it'll be some version of, yeah, man, just go ahead and park your truck, clean it out, and it's good working with you. I mean, for real. So, and Gen Z's at least figured out, well, this is how we're treated. Act accordingly. At least Gen Z's like, hey, man, why would we take this seriously? Number one, they're paying us peanuts. Well, yeah, Gen X, we understood we were not making enough money, but society was still in a building phase of society was willing to give me enough money to, Blockbuster Video was still being built up as a business, right? Walmart was still being built up. Enough of this corporate hellscape was not yet in place. So it was like, okay, we'll have Benton and his roommate will both work for $8.25 an hour, full fucking time, and then still have a little bit of money left over to entertain themselves, right? That's over, man. That's fucking over. It's never to return. Because why? Because the corporate hellscape is entrenched to the point where it doesn't need morons nearly as much to build it up anymore. Now it's able to sustain itself on some level, right? And this is the sort of if people remember like the Akira, the sort of Tokyo future, the cyberpunk, some of the Mad Max type shit, whatever that whole, and I'm artsy fartsy. I have an aesthetic, right? I'm not a visual artist, but I got an eye, man. Like it's a thing. Just accept it or don't. That's fine. But I've always had a keen eye for these things visually, even though I didn't really back then. I couldn't have told you what I was seeing, but I understood it. I knew what I was looking at back then, and I never was a big anime guy. We didn't really know what that was in Arkansas back then, but I was the closest thing to I at least knew what the fuck Akira was. Oh, Japa. We still called it Japanimation, and then I was like, yeah, I think they also call it manga, or I think that's the comic books. I mean, this is literally what I knew back then in the 90s. It was like, yeah, it's I forget the actual official term for whatever this is now for some reason, but you know what I mean, right? And I'm passing Love's. Love's is building a brand new truck stop on one side of the interstate, and there's a Flying J on the other side. That's a truck stop that's been there for decades, and it's been rebuilt and refurbished and bought and sold and changed hands. You'll never convince me that Flying J doesn't compete with Love's. I'm sorry, Love's and Flying J don't compete with each other. Because why? Because they're both large enough that at the level of corporations, competition is a sin. So if Flying J says to Loves, you know, there, and if y'all ever seen that movie with Matt Damon, The Insider, I think that's what it's called, and where he's working for one of these major chemical companies, and they're price colluding. So every once in a while, he has to meet with the other executives from the other like two or three big chemical manufacturers to make sure, because they don't trust each other. They got to make sure nobody's going to drop their price so they can all keep making profits. So you can't tell me it's not some version of that. With why is Love's building brand motherfucking new truck stops everywhere? Flying J does not build. Pilot Flying J don't build new truck stops. Every once in a while they build one here and there, right? And maybe that's like Loves and Pilot is like, okay, well, we're going to put a Loves over here, and then Pilot's like, yeah, we're going to put a Pilot over there, but we're mainly just going to continue to operate our old falling down truck stop, right? But then Loves is in for why is it Flying J? If it was still 1988 capitalism, Flying J would be knocking down their truck stop and rebuilding it solely based on Love's building a brand new truck stop on the other side of the interstate. That's what would be happening if this was 1988, right? Little Rock, motherfucking Arkansas had two brand new shopping malls. Why? Because capitalism wasn't going to see one gigantic shopping mall. Actually, it had three, now that I think about it. One was in North Little Rock. Because capitalism, 1988 capitalism that was still building everything up, and it wasn't yet, Tokyo fucking, cyberpunk dystopian hellscape like Akira, Tokyo-esque yet, with there wasn't a collapse yet. Nothing had been built up enough to even collapse. The stuff that had collapsed was like stuff that was so fucking antiquated, it wasn't even to be taken seriously in the first place. It's like all this stuff that I see out here on Route 66. They never even bothered to tear it down because it's like, why not? Let's just continue to look at it. These rotting fucking husks of whatever that was, when it was a one lane in each direction highway running through all of these towns. That used to be business in this country. That shit's over with. It's been over with for a long time. So as, the 1988 version of let's just build it all up because the system knows, Moloch's machine knows, well, half this shit, we're just going to let it collapse anyway. What's the fucking difference? If some rich person wants to build them all. So in 1988, Little Rock realistically could support maybe two malls, maybe, right? It had three. Pine Bluff, Arkansas, at maximum it had one, and that's what it could support. Probably couldn't even support the size that it had, looking back on it. So of course it's fallen into decay. And it's not that many years later. I was, let's see, how old was I when they opened the Pines Mall? I don't know, 12? And started going to the mall on a regular basis, and had no money. Nobody had any money back then. How the fuck did every fucking halfway, 15,000, population 30,000 town across America have a fucking mall back then? Nobody had any money. Now, yeah, part of that was my parents were frugal, and my friends' parents maybe bought them more shit than my parents bought me, but like most of the time we went to the mall, nobody was really buying anything. It's like, oh, look, corn dog 7. I've just enough money to kind of buy some food here. Like, was that even real? And then you have back to school, mom will take you shopping for your clothes or whatever. Sure. Trapper Keeper, a goddamn lunchbox, whatever. Whatever that was, But I can see it. It's like, why is Love's building brand new truck stops everywhere and they're the only one, other than some mom and pop regional stuff here and there? Like, it has to mean something, And if you don't think, if the boomers and Gen X don't understand that Gen Z takes one look at this and they've been online since they were 2 years old and they don't see it for what it is, you're crazy. You're fucking crazy. If you don't think they see the rotting, decaying malls of my youth, right, and simultaneously watch Love's brand new, nice, clean truck stops, and then why is that? Why is there this disgusting, filthy Flying J across the street, right? And why does Love's not have paid parking, but Flying J does? You can't. That has to be collusion. How can that not be collusion, right? If it was actual competition, neither one of them would have paid parking, or they both would. How is it like one does and one doesn't? It doesn't even make sense. What is this? So if you don't think Gen Z, and we project, right? Boomers and Gen X, we project onto the kids, right? But you want to talk about the indigo children? Like these are the children of the indigo children, for fuck's sake. Like, get to know them, boomers. How about you just go find a Gen Z and just, I don't know, find out what they're like. Shut the fuck up and listen to them. And I'm bad about this too. I like to fucking get preachy and run off at the mouth. But even I managed to overcome myself long enough to actually pay attention to them and listen and see what they're all about, right? And also something else I figured out, and boomers and Gen X, they love this idea of make America great again. We're all going to fucking link arms, sing kumbaya, and fix dystopia. Sure you're not, but they'll never let go of that. They're always going to hold out hope that there's hope for this place. That's how strongly identified Gen X and boomers are with whatever. Again, the delusion of this place, the delusional realm itself. And that's part of the reason why they can't really talk to Gen Z or listen to them. And then furthermore, but then simultaneously want to talk about, the children are our future, treat them well and let them lead the way. Or just listen to what they have to say, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. But I kind of lost my point, but I feel like it's going to come back. It is, but just a moment. Yeah, I'm going to get chapped lips. A little chilly up at these higher elevations. Silence is a meditation, as we know. So while I try to get my point back, if it decides to return to me, um, there's a lot of freedom. This idea that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. If these Gen Z doomer kids, they're going to have to prove that this is what they believe, right? Otherwise, it's just lip service. And, I'm not from Missouri, but you got to show me, Jack. So what again, it's not about me, but what I would want to see from Gen Z is, you know, own it. Like they get to choose what their life's going to look like, but not if they're still going to seek the approval of this realm. Moloch's machine is never going to give them attaboys and pat them on the head if they're not doing the bidding of Moloch's machine, right? And I don't mean go do what I did. And, I wanted to travel. I wanted to hitchhike. You know, I was reading books about walking across America when I was a kid. And part of me wanted to do that. And for strategic reasons, I chose not to. But, you know, uh, just I like long walks. I've walked 100 miles for fun before, just whatever, you know. So some of this is Gen Z individually gets to choose for themselves. Like, okay, now what, Gen Z? It's like, yeah, okay, I understand that you see through the bullshit, but what now? And as we know, Moloch's machine will always try to get the people or the individuals to collectivize. And it will always individuals to inward find out what you want to talk about dopamine and serotonin and reward centers in the body? Like what what gets the person's rocks off metaphorically? Like what does their physicality respond to? For me, it's like walking around and thinking. Like that's good enough for me. I can just walk around all day and think about shit and listen to content, and then I'll tune it out when I'm having my own deep thoughts with Jack Candy, and then I'll pause it if it gets serious enough, right? And then if it gets really serious, or why so serious, I might do a live stream. Right? I mean, it's not that complicated. But then what I would say to Gen Z is, man, like, I'm not here to call y'all a bunch of pussies. What I'm here to say is, I think most of my generation is pussies. I think a lot of my dad's generation is pussies. So, I don't know what to tell you. It's like I chose to build myself up to be very strong mentally and somewhat strong physically, even in my own, you know, I weigh 130 pounds. I'm a legit 5'10", with a medium sized frame. It's like I'm a bit rangy. It's like, I don't. I'm 49 years old. I only weigh 130 pounds because of health reasons. And the fact that other than I crushed a whole, pack of fucking cookies earlier, 1,000 calories worth of cookies, which yeah, they're processed. But let me read you the ingredient. Uh, Semi-sweet chocolate chips, sugar, chocolate liqueur, cocoa butter, milk fat, soy lecithin, an emulsifier, natural flavors. Of course, that could be anything. Butter, unbleached flour, wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, mononitrate. Not a fan of that. Riboflavin, folic acid, malted barley flour, sugar, brown sugar, eggs, cocoa powder, salt, baking soda, natural flavor. So yeah, I'm sure some of those ingredients are adulterated, but about as close as I can get to a real actual cookie that available in a store, right? A big box store. Yeah, it's $5, but other than that, I'm just not going to eat something that processed. You know, if it's not real ingredients, if it's got bad fats or seed oils, I just don't eat it. That's also part of the reason I'm 130 pounds. I'm probably going to do some fasting in the near future. I might walk around for a week, 10 miles a day, and not eat much. You know, whatever. It's for each Gen Z individual to figure it out for themselves. To put themselves through their own regimen, right? And for me, realistically, I probably need to just, metaphorically burn the boat, find somebody to give this car to. Maybe that's, I'd like to give it to somebody that can register it, right? But I don't know. Hell, keep paying the car insurance and just drive it around. Technically they're not covered, but I don't know if you can. I don't know. Can I write them a permission slip and say that I'm giving them permission to drive the vehicle? I mean, I don't know how that works. I'll just give it to somebody at this point. Who cares? It ain't even real. And then, and it is real on some level because it's at least masquerading as a material realm with, there are eventualities. And so on the one hand, and this is where, again, my 15 years of dealing with these existential dread and, contending, I just have a head start on a lot of these Gen Zers, and I've been stubborn enough and self-flagellating enough to just beat the fuck out of myself. And some of it is I'm drawn to do it, but they're talking out of both sides of their mouth a lot of the time because they want to talk about this isn't even real, but as sort of a cop out. But then, yeah, but they're still talking about how well, what's the point of making a bunch of money? You can't take it with you, and we're all going to die anyway. So what's the point? It's like, yeah, I understand that. However, in between now Well, shit, boy, howdy, was I on a roll? Well, how long was I gone? How long was I gone? Because I sure was on a roll. Man, that's a shame. It was at least long enough that the screen timed out. Ah, damn, I was chopping it up. But that's kind of doesn't that say something about the nature of the realm itself? Which is like, hey, man, it's a delusion anyway. Like, why so serious? Like, well, yeah, I understand that there's people that want to hear this, and I understand. I still get whatever I get out of it just by speaking it. And then if other people are able to tune in, great. But at the end of the day, does it really matter how long I was gone? Yeah, probably not. Trapper keeper, that's right, Jimbo. Good to see you. However long I've been gone, never left. And Jimbo, this is not to criticize you, sir, and I'm addressing the chat if anybody's listening to this later on replay. Here's two guns, exit 230. I got two guns. And, I'll let your brain fill in the rest of that. So, and I fallen victim to the pronouns as well, but one of the major mistakes that Moloch's machine has us. See, I'm doing it too now. So I'll let you off the hook for that we, but as long as you understand that's the idea of a we or a collective, that in and of itself is folly, right? It's always the individual. It's always me versus whatever, right? It's always me and my path of progress. It's always me and my fulfillment or lack thereof. And Gen Z has a shortcut, I would say. Gen Z, they don't have to wait till they're 35 like I did. They can fucking YOLO right now. And I don't really believe this idea. Hopefully I only live once within this particular flavor of delusion and dystopia and death and destruction. Whatever this particular, Dante's Inferno this is. Hang on, let's have a little bit of water here. And I would say it's worse, Jimbo. It's not that people have made a decision to not progress. It's that they've allowed the realm itself to usurp their own progress, right? They've allowed the realm to actually dictate to them and to provide to them, okay, here's your fulfillment. Check all these boxes, then now you get to rest assured. Now you get to feel some type of way about yourself, right? Do it all externally outside of the self, right? Which is always a mistake, for the individual. It's this idea of, building together society, right? Mothers, fathers, children, the local school system, the local economy, the local businesses. That's all dead, man. The family unit is dead. The nuclear family, now, yeah, some people are living that way. I understand that. The nuclear family is dead, right? Local businesses are either dead or on life support soon to die. This is the reality. That shit's never coming back. Okay. It's never coming back. Gen Z sees this. Gen Z might recognize, okay, well, you know, uh, I'm an individual. If I'm let's in a thought experiment, I'm an individual Gen Zer. Well, I can take an honest assessment of what are my skills, what are my abilities, what am I good at, what am I not good at, what do I have to offer to a business. Maybe I would want to go out and be some version of a plumber, right? Under the right circumstances, if it works for me. What we now see is increasingly to go out here and be a plumber is what? To work for a business person who's already began the process of building their business up to a high enough level to get to what? To get bought out so they can retire. So that now the person who just wants to work as a plumber, it's now they're 35, just now entering their prime, and now they're going to be slaving away for what? A corporation. And what's a corporation going to do? The corporation is going to be as disloyal to them as it possibly can, while simultaneously exploiting their labor to the highest degree possible, because that's what the corporate structure does. And then to sort of freeze their wages at a level, right? And then people will always, from the outside looking in, say, well, you can always start your own business. It's like, yeah, I can, but only realistically if I'm willing to take enough risk to maybe build this thing up big enough that a larger company will buy me out. That's really, otherwise we just, it's some version of buying a job, meaning, okay, well, it's the guy's still a plumber. He makes, maybe if he knows how to run a business, which that's not even a given, but if they have some sort of business acumen, maybe they make a little more money. And some of that is how willing are they to cheat on their taxes, right? And then, getting lucky and not getting sued out of existence, or, whatever that can all manifest as, or, oh, something happens, they have a claim on their insurance, now their insurance triples. Who, why would anybody choose to go into that? So really they just bought a job with even more headaches and even more worries, you know. Or they can more or less see their salaries frozen and then their hours chipped away at, and then what the corporation will do is it will attempt to get them to do plumbing off the clock, right? So for real, that's what it very quickly turns into. So Gen Z, they already know all of this. Gen Z takes one look at all of this and knows exactly what they're looking at. Gen X and Boomers need me to break it down and still don't even halfway believe me, right? Or they do, but it's just kind of entertaining, and then they go right back to strongly identifying with America, mom, apple pie, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, small businesses. Hey, you can go into business for yourself. It's a land of opportunity. And it is, in a way, if a person is willing to take the risks and understanding that, okay, I'm going to start a plumbing business and I must get rich or die trying. Today, right? As an individual who doesn't have mouths to feed other than their own, to choose to go to work every day is a version of get rich or die trying. And what I would say is this middle ground, there is no middle ground. This idea that we're going to try to, what I did, this idea that, oh, I'm going to comfortably exist in this middle ground and just hope that the so-called economy improves. Meanwhile, well, the economy, from our perspective, is a never-ending cycle of booms and busts. So yeah, there's going to be a boom cycle if you're able to catch that wave, but it's going to crash, right? Now the system is just putting it on Front Street that they're overtly managing the contraction phase after it's inflated time after time, right? And it's not even possible to fully opt out of this. I'm saying this with, I got a direct deposit on my Cash App like however many days ago. Yesterday, $1,000 to my Cash App, and that's only because the trucking company may have robbed me of 500, or I may get the 500 next week. I don't really know yet. We'll find out. Depends on how they decide to do the pay periods and such with respect to my last check. If it was me, I would have just paid it all out on this check. But maybe they're going to hit me maybe one more time, perhaps. We'll see. What up, Venus? Good to see you. Boys here. Venus, one of my favorites. I don't know what Venus's life has been like, but maybe she did her own version of get rich and die trying, or die trying. And now maybe she's able to live in relative comfort. And if so, then great. Some of us, and I see. Here's the thing: is when I talked about earlier, completely divorcing myself from any notion of society approving of what I do on a day in day out basis. Well, part of that is also I'm completely comfortable with the part of life where I never made it in the eyes of this world, and that's okay. Like I'm completely fine with the, you know, uh, yeah, I could have figured it the fuck out, and I didn't, and I'm okay with. I'm legitimately okay. It's fine, right? It's completely fine. I'm okay with it. Uh, who knows? And probably, everything always works out, and probably it's supposed to be this way. I do believe in destiny. It's like, yeah, free will and destiny simultaneously, sure. And I got no time for these bozos who want to debate free will. It's like, yeah, I can. It exists in a way, right? It exists in a context or different contexts or contexts. Again, I never managed to look up if is it contexts or am I just tripping? I don't know. Or maybe that's my own joke to myself. Either way, maybe I'm finding the humor in it. Either way, until the individual reckons with all of these various aspects for themselves, within a delusion, within their own delusion of their own making, and within the larger delusions, until that work is done, or at least the undertaking has started, what else is especially the Gen Z male, what else is there to do than some version of we're doomer kids and or they're doomer kids, and it's like 50% the spirit of the Joker movie or whatever. But it's like the Joker movie, but we're not actually going to go participate in ultra violence, most of us, right? you know uh, Clockwork Orange scale ultra violence. We're not actually going to go do that. Because, and part of that is also, as males never being forced out of boyhood into actual manhood, part of that is probably to understand, well, we're not drug addicts and we're probably not going to want to end up in the penitentiary. Then we will be sort of forced into actual manhood, and maybe have to have a fist fight or two, right? It's like, yeah, I also don't want to go to the penitentiary, but I'm pretty sure I could go there and conduct myself as a man, Yeah, I don't want to fight either, but it's like, yeah, I will if I have to. I don't see the point in it for the most part, but you know, my mind is my weapon, and it's like, yeah, I'll fucking duke it out if I have to. And half of that is just proving that I'm willing to, so that people will leave me the fuck alone, right? And it's like, hopefully, whoever I fight doesn't hurt me too bad, or maybe who knows, maybe I win. Who the fuck knows? And again, I have the answers, and so this is, I'm going to bring it to an externalization versus an internalization. Yeah, I can preach on this and give speeches. I can do live streams. But what it comes down to is I absolutely have the answers. They're inside of me. The kingdom of God is within me. Again, Venus is here, perhaps. It's not even again, I'm only able to think about some of these things in very specific ways. I don't actually mean it in the context of a religion, at least not entirely, right? I'm here to tell you religion is a creation of man, and it's demonic as far as I'm concerned. That's in Christianity's hot fucking demonized garbage. Like, for real. That's my honest assessment. However, why wouldn't I make use of whatever concepts I'm able to make use of? I'd be a fool not to. And it's how my brain works anyway, based on whatever, mind fucks were foisted upon me as a young person. You know, it's fine. Again, the only way out is through. I'm working with what I've been given. So what the realm will quickly do is any notion of spirituality or, some of these doomer kids in my feed, it's a lot of futility, right? It's a lot of, well, the shit is futile anyway. And I'm like, okay, but where? Where is it futile? If you mean outside of you, yeah, it's absolutely futile outside of yourself. Is it futile inside of yourself? Has these people realistically explored their own internal space well enough to understand whether or not resistance is futile, right? Because what the realm will do is the moment I start to talk about these topics, the realm will say, okay, buddy, now we need you to externalize and give us, we need you to go up on your high horse and go up on, like Moses, go up to the mountain and then come down with the tablets. And then you're going to dictate to us how to live, right? And then that's already a mockery. And then the realm itself will, undermine that for its own purposes. So I'm strategic enough to see all of that and be like, well, why the fuck would I participate? Well, I won't. However, if I'm willing to, if I'm not seeking the approval of the realm, if I've divorced myself from certain outcomes externally, and I am, living a certain type of life going back 15 years, well, now I'm freed up to say, I absolutely have the answers, but not your answers. I don't know anything about your answers. I know a great deal with respect to my answers. And if I'm honest, that's really the only answers I give a fuck about. And a lot of me coming on here talking about this stuff is it helps me. And I almost talked about this last time, and I will get into it. The MBTI with the INTJ, if anybody's willing to accept the Myers-Briggs, personality type theory system, right? It's a theory system. It's not proven, but I have the one that everybody fetishizes for a time, and a lot of these fictional characters, fucking Walter White or whatever, and Gus Fring apparently, INTJ. A lot of people are like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. No matter what I do, I always test INTJ, right?" Uh, anyway, it doesn't even matter. I'm convinced, and that's all that matters. And yes, introverted intuition is a superpower if the person develops themselves enough to be able to utilize it, of course. And that's a whole thing. It's a bit of a, being shot out of a cannon in a way. But yeah, it's definitely a superpower in a way. Uh, however, the secondary function is extroverted thinking. And that's the people who like to talk to themselves, right? I like to talk shit out to myself. And if y'all want to listen to it, great. Wonderful. Why not? And I am so vain. So, why wouldn't I have 10 people listening to me? And it would have been 30 in the past, but who cares? Like, I'm not that vain. I'm not entitled. I'm vain. I'm not entitled. Although in some ways, I'm sure I am. Show me a human, I'll show you a hypocrite. And then for Gen Z, to grow and change and evolve within themselves to be able to what? To interface with and apprehend and work amongst all of these various concepts more or less simultaneously in the moment, right? That's a big part of it also. That's a performance. I'm performing here. I'm not a monkey performing for you folks. I'm putting my name on it sort of universally or, to creation itself, as a delusory aspect, as if it's possible to break off a chunk of, an indivisible force, the most super intelligent force of love and creation possible to highest levels of vibrational frequency, aka what I know myself to be within myself, right? So what I am, meaning what's talking to you or what I'm speaking to you through, right? This identity, this defective personality, whatever this level of consciousness is that on autopilot can operate this motor vehicle and not get pulled over, not get ticketed, not have accidents, live stream, watch the road, drive safe. There goes JG perhaps on a freight train going the other way, right? Namaste, motherfucker. And, salute. And, salute to you, sir. And, I mean, I believe my point's made there, right? I believe my point is made, even though I didn't quite finish it up. So realistically, what is there to do in this place other than my own internal work? Now, this is the ultimate, it's not narcissism, right? But this is sort of the ultimate sort of magnifying of my own self within myself, but not, again, Moloch's machine will say, okay, Benton, you know, if you really wanted to take that work ethic, you know, and you are thin, right, and you're trim, and you know, I probably could go make something of some version of an actor, right? Probably could. Not interested. It's not the point. That's backwards. It's Moloch's machine will always make me the offer of, okay, man, go ahead and do this thing, but only do it in a way that your riches remain encased or entrapped within the realm of delusion and destruction. And it's also antithesis' way of saying, well, there can't possibly be any rewards within you that have any value. And what I'm saying is, I am the value, and everything that has value and represents a reward is only found within me from my own perspective, because I have to leave solipsism on the table. I have to. I'm not able to completely dismiss solipsism, right? I'm not able to do that. Only perhaps in a thought experiment am I able to completely dismiss solipsism. And even then, only for a time, right? Only for a time. And then, so there's a great opportunity for individuals in the younger generations to recognize, okay, you know, Gen Z, or sorry, Gen X, boomers strongly identify with the country, the military, all of these things, the corporate system. They actually want to see it fixed in a way, and they fantasize that if it was somehow fixed, it would serve them. It's like, well, okay, well, based on what? That's crazy. Just that's a form of insanity, right? And they want Gen Z to help. Now, what I'm here to say is, by the time, and I'm Gen X, I'm 50. Boomers are 70, right? My parents are boomers, they're 70. Okay. By the time a person makes it to 50 in this system, or 70, we have such high levels of Stockholm syndrome. We so strongly identify with this place on some level that we're not capable of fixing it. We no longer have the ability. Who does have the ability? And again, in a thought experiment, if this is even possible, it's probably not. I would say it's the young people. And then I would say, okay, Gen X, why didn't you sacrifice your youth to fix this place? Hey, boomers, why didn't you sacrifice your youth to fix this place? Because you are too busy enjoying your youth. So, of course, Gen Z is going to do that also. It's actually not appropriate to ask them to slave away from corporations based on what? My own largesse? My own self-serving largesse? Are you crazy? Well, yeah, a lot of boomers and Gen X are crazy, certainly, as we see. How could they not be? They're fucking crazy. You know, it accounts for the meds, right? And, you know, I refuse to participate, at least, you know, I refuse to lean into my participation. You know, all of us are participating to some extent, but at some point, you know, maybe I will just be like, finally, it's just, there's that ascetic fucking, you know, renunciate monk wandering around, you know, not really talking to anybody. And then, you know, perhaps looking forward to the day when someone will seek his counsel, right? And hopefully my voice still works by then. You know, the bodhisattva of the bayou, for fuck's sakes, right? And again, tongue in cheek, you know, I'm sort of making that light of the whole situation in a way. You know, it's funny because it's true on some level. Hashtag GOML. But it's a performance. I'm performing before myself, you know, the larger, again, the oneness of what I am. You know, I'm performing for everyone to see. Like, this life is my performative art. Okay. And I know Venus resonates with this if she's still here. And, the fact that I've waited this long to, even be capable of intellectualizing this, you know, and, it's probably for a reason, right? But either way, you know, I'm free to wander off to San Francisco, park my car, at the, and it doesn't even matter if I dox myself, park my car at the Millbrae fucking BART station. And, I already talked about, maybe long-term parking for the car. But I mean, the reality is, if I'm willing to pay for the motherfucking train tickets, as long as I come back to the car, I intend to it. Or, if I can probably find some street parking, you know, uh, general vicinity of what's that, San Bruno or wherever the fuck that is. I guess Millbrae's a town, Silicon Valley, actual Silicon Valley. It's lovely. I mean, surprise, surprise, it's a lovely place, right? In spite of what the media programs into your brains, right? It's a lovely place. Now, is it as walkable as San Francisco? No. But I can get on a train and go there for $11, and people are like, oh my God, $11. Yeah, or that's more or less what it costs to drive there. And driving sucks. In areas that don't suck, guess what does suck? Driving. If driving doesn't suck where you live, and again, there's exceptions, but you know, and I'm not talking about wherever Venus has chosen to live because she probably doesn't drive that much. I don't know. I'm not. Again, she knows I'm not even talking about her. I'm talking more generally, right? The rural folks who aren't actually rural, they just think they're rural, right? In the suburban sprawl, that shit fucking sucks. That's death, you know. And I do have a bit of the Venus punk rock spirit to an extent, and again, not speaking for Venus, but perhaps she will agree. What I suspect Venus is like is a person that takes one look at suburban sprawl and wants to fucking vomit. And see, I didn't grow up in that. That came later, right? I caught just enough of an actual, somewhat, almost kind of cool in certain ways town and, actual city in Arkansas. Now, it wasn't cool, but by Arkansas fucking Bayou Delta standards, you could do a lot worse. It was an actual small city in also a culturally rich part of the country. The Delta, man. You want to talk about music? You know, that is in my spirit and my soul to some extent. Always has been. My dad's both sides of my family do have some musical talent, and I have a cousin near a little older than me who's, other than unfortunately being a horrible drunk, to this day is the level of a touring rock guitarist, meaning in a vacuum, with the right amount of dealing with his fucking alcoholism, he's not capable of going on tour, but just he could actually just play whatever level is required to be, somebody that Ozzy Osbourne or whoever would hire. Like he is that level of musician. I'm not, but I do have some natural musical ability. Now, some of that was I just never gave a fuck about working at it like he did. I wanted to work at other shit. And my dad, had some musical ability also. Who cares? Whatever. But, it's neither here nor there. But, I didn't grow up in this suburban bullshit, suburban sprawl. It's not my. So by the time the suburbs came around, yeah, I've chosen to live in the suburbs at various times. I never identified with it as like, wow, this is great. I was more like, well, I'm going to have a good time in life. And this just happens to be like where I'm having a good time, right? Sort of coincidentally, apropos of nothing. This is just sort of like what I'm doing, norming it up, But, I'll talk to Venus directly if she's still around. Look at these people and the levels at which they are actually personally identifying with the idea that a suburban sprawl hellscape, like that's some kind of life to aspire to. That's also what they mean when they say make America great again. It's like, yes, please, more fucking suburban hellscape, which is what? Corporate, corporate, corporate. That's all I see when I'm in a suburban sprawl hellscape. I see corporation after corporation after corporation after corporation. That's all I see. It's disgusting. What's not disgusting is when I went on vacation in 2019 to Philadelphia, and part of that was I knew that I wasn't gonna. If I went to Manhattan for a week, I would try to see everything, in the fucking five boroughs or whatever. It's not enough time, man. So I knew myself, and I said, well, fuck it. I don't really give a fuck. I'll see whatever the fuck I see in Philly. Who cares? And also I can fly there direct from Dallas. Don't have to rent a car. Take the public transit from the fucking airport to the downtown. Stay in a nice hotel, and it's affordable. And I knew, I can take the goddamn Amtrak to Manhattan for one day and have a lovely motherfucking time, which I did. And none of it involved a corporation. None of it involved suburban sprawl. None of it involved a hellscape. Yeah. Was there some version of, oh my God, maybe it might be a little scary over here? Well, not really, but it's possible, right? And people say, yeah, Hank Williams Jr., country boy can't survive. You're only getting stabbed if you go downtown. No, that's you. And it's never been me. I was bebopping around Memphis, Tennessee after dark with fucking bulletproof glass on the nearby gas station, and they wouldn't even let you come in the store after dark. And I was skateboarding around at age 13. I mean, I've always been a street person to some extent. I mean, what is this? I think it's Flagstaff, actually. Now that I look at it, I think I'm in Flagstaff, maybe. Probably almost time for a bathroom break. Probably should have took that exit, but that's all right. I don't see the Walmart. An Arkansas boy can sniff out a Walmart. Although that might be the Walmart exit. Although the Flagstaff Walmart is particularly, all the travelers seem to go there more or less simultaneously. No, I think that's the super center. Or is it? That looks like it. Yeah, it's got to be it. Who cares? We can live without that. $29 to Williams. I think they have a Walmart. No, they don't. They have a Safeway. That's truck driver memories because there's TA there. Going, yeah, Williams has a Kroger actually, or Safeway, yeah, or a Kroger. I mean, what's fucking different? Safeway, Kroger. Final answer. It's Kroger. Like, the idea of the desirability of the suburbs, like that's death, man. People can view Manhattan however they want. Yeah, death is there, but it's alive on some level within a delusion, certainly. But well, compared to the suburb, it's alive. You know, imagine meeting a 23-year-old Venus, right? I mean, seriously, just like imagine that. That she wasn't in. I'm pretty sure she wasn't to be met in the suburbs somewhere, unless she was maybe playing a gig and just accidentally ended up in the suburbs. I don't know. I can't call it. It's above my pay grade. Oh, I think I am in the proper lane here. Never mind. But I just don't understand. Like, what's the point of coming here and dealing with all this nonsense, all this stress, all the death, all the destruction, all the delusion, and then just to like what work a job, raise the kids, and some version of homesteading or a suburban hellscape. Like, what's the fucking point? It's like the cover of The Burbs with Tom Hanks standing there with that bewildered look on his face, and like the water hose is running. Just got the water hose in his hand, in his bathrobe and his slippers. You know? That's not living, y'all. That ain't living. You know, you'll never convince me that it is. I'm not. I never signed up for that. I sort of did, but it never took. I sort of attempted it, but thankfully it was a failure to launch. That was married to ex-wife number one, and you know, had a mortgage. You know, an actual what seemed to be a job. You know, an actual like white collar fucking IT. You know, going to work in my business casual attire or whatever. It's like, oh, I'll put a tie on, not because they make me. It's like because I grew up going to the Kingdom Hall, and it's like, fuck it, I got ties. I might as well wear one. Who cares? Yeah, suburban hellscape indeed. Yeah, 6 hours to Berkeley, and I'm within 1,000 miles, I think, of general vicinity. I'm within a, you know, again, wherever the fuck I choose to park the car. You know, I actually know where I can just go park my car uh, for free, and you know, they'll if they're going to tow my shit, they'll at least put a sticker on my window and won't tow me for 72 hours. So as long as I come back at least every 72 hours, I know I'm good, right? You know, shout out to San Francisco, city of. But yeah, and I don't even know what Berkeley's like. Like I've been back to San Francisco. I haven't even been to, and I've never really been to. I've been to Oakland, but you know, I need to go to Oakland and walk through Oakland in the daytime again. Check out the graffiti art. I am a fan of the old graffiti art. But yeah, I need to at least go see what Berkeley's like, and I'm pretty sure Venus that it's going to be July and August in Portland and Seattle, and maybe that'll be the, you know, not that I'm writing a book necessarily, but that's the title of something. You know, there was George Orwell's Down and Out, and it's either London and Paris or Paris and London, whichever one rolls off the tongue not quite as well as the other one. I think it's Paris and London. I don't know. You know, yeah, July and August in Seattle and Portland, where it's your one is effectively guaranteed no rain. And yeah, people could talk about, oh, Seattle, the Portland, it's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy in 2016, and I still very easily found somewhere to sleep outside in the fucking city, right? And was left the fuck alone. Nobody disturbed me. Nobody woke me up. The cops never came and moved me along. I just laid my head down and went to motherfucking sleep. Right. And then we got, what do we have, Venus? We got bozos that want to post in the YouTube comments, you know, carry water, chop wood, or whatever. And what do you think the modern version of that is? It's, and not you, Venus, but what do they think the modern version of that would be? It's like, hey, July and August in Portland and Seattle, and you know, it's the Zen version of when I'm hungry, I eat, and when I need rest, I go to sleep. And the modern version of that is, well, if it's July and August and I'm in Portland or Seattle, I use my street level stars to know where to lay my head down. Where even though I'm in public, I know I'll fuck alone, right? Because nobody really gives a fuck, you know. What up, Rebecca Joe? And why would they? Now, if I'm in much of the middle part of the country, they do give a fuck. Why do they give a fuck? You know. And now I will shout out to Little Rock, Arkansas, which does hate the homeless, but I used to sleep in a park downtown on occasion by these near these other homeless people that were meth heads, and they used to keep me up. But I would manage to get a little bit of shut eye. Eventually, I matriculated to the North Little Rock side and found a spot where most nights nobody wandered by. But the city cops would come by every morning around 5:45, and they didn't write tickets. They didn't, but it was like, hey, y'all got to get the fuck up now. It's time to get moving. Because you know why? Because somebody might want to use the park, and I have no problem with that. But I found sleeping spots where there's no reason for anybody to come bother me. You know, except a crazy person would wander by every once in a while, and I would just be like, hey man, if you don't mind, could you go be crazy somewhere else? I'm all for it, but I'm trying to sleep over here. And however that's communicated, and realizing I can't make them leave. Because if I get angry and forceful enough to try to make them leave, now I can't sleep anyway. So what's the point, right? If you want to talk about carry water, chop wood, I don't know. How about go? How about evolve within oneself to be able to do a 2025 version of that in a city, probably? Because I would say the city's perhaps more conducive to that. Because if a person tries to do that without money and without their own property that they control, whatever version of whatever it is that Venus is living, then a person's going to end up in a fucking cult, right? I mean, that's the only way. Oh, they're going to call it a commune or, woofing or whatever. But yeah, unless a person is very strong-willed and has their shit together, they're going to end up a goddamn cult or lead, or even worse, perhaps starting one, right? And, I've been around the Mount Shasta types of Venus, and I don't know what your opinion is of the Mount Shasta types. Many of them are lovely people. I don't really like the culture of the Mount Shasta people. Surprise, surprise. I've not really ever spent much time at all in Mount Shasta, and that's supposedly the heart chakra of the realm. And it's like, yeah, well, if that's the case, I understand that supposedly it's the entire realm and maybe Mount Fuji or whatever. But if I'm looking at it as the West Coast, it's like, I don't know, man. If that's the heart chakra, then I guess I know where the third eye and the crown chakra is, perhaps, right? And it kind of lines up with whatever LA presents itself to be, because LA is in your face lower chakra, if anything is. So yeah, let's look at a map of the West Coast and say, well, here's the heart chakra. It's like, okay, well, LA lines right up with the lower chakras, and I don't know, is Tijuana the fucking root chakra? I mean, I'm kind of making jokes here, but and then LA is the sacral chakra, I guess, or the orange one. Some of this I've forgotten. I don't even really I've dealt with this enough to not even really need to be able to remember it. But if the root is number one, then the next one ascending, right? And then I don't know what would be the solar plexus chakra. SF? I don't fucking know. It's interesting to think about. I just came up with this recently. And it's a thought experiment. But now you're looking at Portland and Seattle, or I don't know, Vancouver, BC, maybe. I haven't even been there. Maybe that's the crown chakra of the West Coast. I don't fucking know. Portland is throat chakra, maybe. I mean, that kind of makes some sense with, or maybe Portland / Eugene when you look at what's gone on there. Eugene apparently had the longest uninterrupted Occupy Wall Street. And if you go there, it's one of the first things that the anarchists downtown will tell you. I know because I've been there and they told me. It's one of the first mother things. You get the general vicinity of Ken Kesey Square, and it's one of the first things they're going to tell you, partner. Believe that. Good on them. Right? Ken Kesey, the Merry Pranksters, all of that coming out of Eugene to some extent. Sounds like a throat chakra to me. I don't know. It's kind of starting to line up now, ain't it? What do you think, Venus? Yeah, I love Eugene's. One of my favorite places, and I'm certainly going back there if I remain on the West Coast through the summer. I will be returning. Sadly, in some ways, I do have a bit of a reputation, not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, just a bit of a history in Eugene. I certainly, some of these survivors that my former, friends of the past are certainly if I wander through Alton Baker Park, there's a high likelihood I will bump into someone I know, which is a good thing, but it's also not a great thing necessarily. But yeah, Eugene is awesome. I have a lot of things I love about Eugene, and I'm able to go there in the when it's raining. I've taught myself to camp in the rain, but I prefer not to, right? So, but I don't know. I could go there. Fuck it. Why not? I can do whatever I want, uh, to some extent, or more correctly, consistent with my nature when properly identified. I get to basically do whatever the fuck I want. It's a wonderful, and it's something I've created for myself. It was not bestowed upon me entirely. I've created it for myself. And Venus also, I suspect, whatever she's got going is, that's her own creation within delusion that she's fostered and earned it. And I've known, all along that I have this to fall back on. The fact that I have a lot of knowledge of like where to go and what to do, and yeah, that does change over time, but it doesn't change that much. At one point, I even like knew where I could go, like just take this turn off the 101 in Humboldt, and like still remembered the fucking code to the just free shower. And yeah, I didn't even care enough to keep up with that knowledge. But it is sort of a whole subculture that one is blessed into to some extent, or can be that whole subculture. Uh, yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's like the inverse of the suburban hellscape in a lot of ways. Oh, Eugene, yeah, I could see that. It's certainly it's not as aggressive as what I experienced in Berkeley, but there's some element of that. Santa Cruz also has its own street level aggression, which as a Southerner, I appreciate when somebody will just more or less poke me in the chest and be like, "Hey, buddy, this is how it is." Like where I'm from, we kind of like that, and we will also do that when we need to. So I like that. It's like, oh yeah, aggression. Okay, great. I know what that is. No problemo. Oh yeah. Well, and that's what I've been talking about with the coast. I mean, at this point, I've known all along, worst comes to worst or best comes to best. More correctly, the West is the best. I can always just wander up and down the West Coast wherever the weather's nice. It's not that difficult, especially, some version of just, you know, uh, my bliss, right? Where's your bliss? And I would suspect that Venus knows what that means, but if not, that's okay. But generally, one would be referring to one's uh, like where's your plate and your fork or your spoon or whatever. Like where are your utensils to eat this meal we're about to give you? Because yeah, we surely we'll happily share our meal with you, but you're expected to bring your own bliss with you. Bring your own BYOB. Bring your own bliss. But anyway, of course, most of the so-called truth community don't know nothing about that. That's okay. I wouldn't expect them to. Venus may or may not, and it doesn't matter. That may have just been the particular flavor of hippies I was running with at the time, or at least freely moving amongst. That doesn't make it a universal, but either way, um, either way, I know I can. And shout out to Amazon. Short out, I hate corporations. I love Amazon, Starbucks, and Walmart. Like, or at least the super centers. I do hate Walmart, the company, but how to, make it make sense. But it's like, yeah, I know I can just go on Amazon and order certain fucking, I know what to buy and I know what I can carry and, you know, equip myself and just more or less wander around on foot. Like it's not complicated. It's psychologically complicated if the being hasn't developed themselves to that extent, right? And I've said before, like I'm half a hippie. Like Pine Bluff, Arkansas is never made a hippie. It's just a fucking, it's a bridge too far culturally. It's not bridgeable. That bridge can't, that gap cannot be bridged, or maybe it can, not in my generation. And I would encourage the Gen Z not to become hippies to, maybe their own version of what, the hippie movement maybe could have become, right? And maybe understand that the government and the Moloch's machine and the corporate hellscape will seek to co-opt and thwart, and in fact, will seek to birth it. As soon as they see that it's going to happen, we'll seek to actually midwife it, right? We'll seek to be right there, fucking to catch the baby as it's birthed into the realm, you know, and slap it on the ass or whatever. Big Sur, yeah, Big Sur is one of the places I've never really checked out entirely. I probably should just make myself go to Big Sur and just stay there, but I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I'm running out of steam on this here broadcast. Uh, as long as you keep yourself, yeah, exactly, and that's the very Western thing. A very West Coast vibe is just, hey, man, we don't really. It's not our. We don't. We're kind of above it all, and this is my perception of the West Coast culture. Is like we're sort of above it all and got our own thing going on. So just, hey, man, just we're going to trust you to sort of conduct your own affairs and do things properly, and just we're going to leave you the fuck alone, and then you know uh, leave us alone, and then maybe if you're politely asking for resources, somebody will probably help you out, right? Or if not, maybe some version of a work trade, whatever that is at the level of barter or sharing of resources, or get in where you fit in. And this is an ethos I've attempted to sort of introduce into the so-called truth community, back when I was doing the motel streams, and it was this idea of, ad hoc, grassroots, get in where you fit in style, like not a community, not a movement, just more of a sort of overall ethos that people can sort of fall into, or just sort of use for their own purposes, right? Creatively, of course. But anyway, I got to get out of here. Thank you, Venus, for your contributions to the conversation. Thanks for watching. Bye.